Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dads on the Rocks podcast. This is episode 11 of the show. Thank you all so much for joining today. Today's guest is a buddy of mine that I've come to greatly respect as a father, a man, and now a friend. My guest for today's show is Mr. Christian Rogers. Christian, say hello to everybody.
Good evening, everyone.
Christian, it's so weird to call you Christian, by the way, because I would just call you Rogers, but I'm going to have to start getting used to calling you by your first name.
That's fine.
Christian, what are you drinking tonight? As always, we start with a toast, so let's hear it.
Cheers, my friend. I'm drinking Jefferson's small batch bourbon. It is one of my personal favorites.
Is that your normal, go-to one?
No, normally I go with the bullet bourbon. I like the rye.
Oh, so just like me.
Yeah, but lately I've been buying the Jeffersons, and this is the last bit that I have. So cheers to you and your listeners.
Cheers. Today I am having my beer for the day for September Beer Challenge. This is the 8th year that I've been doing it, which is wild. Today's is a Left Hand milk peanut butter milk stout. By the time this comes out, I would have had this like a week ago, so I've had several since then. But anyways, to you, Christian, to everybody out there who's having a drink with us, cheers.
Are you a fan of IPA?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know IPA had a big phase for a while, and I liked IPAs way before that, but for me, like the more it destroys your palate, the better.
Really?
So I like them extremely strong.
Gotcha. Okay.
I like beers of all different kinds. Actually, Today's the peanut butter milk stout. I'm not a big fan because it's just so heavy, and I like a lighter body with a stronger punch. But every beer that I've ever had is a good beer. So for the most part.
I've actually just started drinking beer in the last year.
Really?
It's always been wine or bourbon for me. It's never really been beer. And then one of our coworkers, we went out to dinner one night and they ordered a pitcher of Yingling. And I'm like, I'll have a glass. And then it's been like Yingling, Stella, light beers like that. Nothing too heavy. I'm not a big fan of the IPAs either.
Oh, okay. So. It's something that I pride myself on, especially when, back when we could go out to lunch and dinner and things like that, going out for drinks, pre-kids and pre-COVID. Something that I prided myself on was somebody would hand me the menu and say, Freddie, what should I drink? And I kind of get to know their palate a little bit. I do it with a few of my friends, and for the most part, I'm right on the nose. I'd say, no, this is a little bit too heavy, or this is a little bit too fruity. But I know what people traditionally drink, and I can usually hit it like 8 or 9 times out of 10. So
nice.
It's a gift.
Right. I'll drink to that.
Cheers. If anybody is interested in a shirt, they are $15. Just send me a text or email to dadsontherockspodcast@gmail.com if you're interested, and we'll get you squared away with your size and all that stuff. Christian, please tell our guest a little bit about yourself, anything that you'd like to give away.
All right. Like my man Freddy said, my name is Christian Rogers. I'm a father of 2. I have a 10-year-old girl and a 7-year-old son. I've been married for 12 years, and I've been with my wife since 2002. So it's been a long, long time. We're approaching our 20 year next year. So I've already been told what I'll be getting her for that anniversary. So I'm sure a lot of men can relate to that. Fatherhood is amazing. I've enjoyed every moment of it. Even the bad times, I look back and reflect on, what I can learn and what I can do better. And that's about it. I'm enjoying my daughter and entering her preteen years. So that's been a bit challenging lately. Yeah. For all the dads out there who are enjoying their daughters when they're 2, 3, and 4, just wait till she starts rolling her eyes at you with everything you say. And then my son's my doppelganger. Freddie and I were just talking about, watching What If season or episode 4 with Doctor Strange and evil Doctor Strange and good Doctor Strange. And I kind of feel like my son and I, one day I'm good, he's bad, and other days he's good and I'm bad. So
do you feel like you guys balance each other out sometimes, since you and your son are very close? Do you balance each other out?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we share the same birthday, and he was born on a Friday, and I found out that I was born on a Friday. So it's very strange to see that we have the same initials. And just, when they say twins complete each other's sentences, I think we complete each other's thoughts sometimes. We'll talk about this later in the show, but, I took him to go see Shang-Chi yesterday, and I thought, oh, we haven't listened to the Doom soundtrack in a few days. And then when we get in the car, that's the first thing he asked to listen to. So just wavelengths, and it can be a little creepy at times, but it's a good balance.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to. I feel like my my daughter is going to be a lot more like my wife, and I think my son
Hmm.
is going to be more like me. And I base that on almost nothing, but but I feel like that's how it's going to be.
Yeah,
And I look forward to seeing if we mesh like that, and
right.
like we get along in that regard. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with my daughter, she just put in an application for safety patrol at her school and she got it. And when I was proofreading her letter, I'm big on leadership, I'm big on responsibility and accountability. And those were all the things that she put in for her letter. So it's great to see that, years of putting that in is now kind of paying off and it's starting to come back, and her teachers have always said, she's uh, very emotionally, her emotional intelligence is much higher than a lot of her classmates. So
mhm.
it's great to see that. I'm really proud of that in her and getting to see her grow. Although the attitude, not looking forward to that so much.
The fruits of your labor, and sometimes the fruit is sour.
Yeah, you are not wrong. You are not wrong.
Oh man. So anyway, let's get into the show. As you know,
Hmm.
Christian, you've listened to the show before. We do a few different segments in the show. The first being a parenting topic, and as you know, I like to have my guests kind of take the reins and talk about what they would like to talk about. So go ahead.
All right, the parenting topic that I'd like to discuss, and Freddie, you and I talk about this quite a bit, especially at work, is just finding a balance. And that balance can be, whether you're dealing with your job and your family, whether you're dealing with, getting enough you time in for your family. And I just feel it's very important. Growing up, I saw my dad and, he was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week sometimes. And it got to a point where, most teenagers, have their arguments with their parents. And he and I got into a huge argument one day. And I remember him saying, I've put my career before my family. And that never really sat well with me. And I've always tried to do my best with it balancing the two. As a police officer in South Florida, we have the opportunity to work details and a lot of overtime assignments. And I've never been one to do that because I do value my family and spending time with them. Um, I was a SWAT operator for 7 years on our SWAT team, and there were times where I had to deal with very, very stressful calls, and then I would go home and just spend time with my family and kind of unwind a little bit. And it's great to have that balance as opposed to just always putting my career first and focusing on that, and then getting burned out, and then going home and taking it out on the family and not having the backbone and relationship that I have with them and the support that I have. But then the other side of that is you can't put everything that you have into your family because I believe that, if you do, you're not going to be the best person that you can be. And Freddie, you and I talk about this all the time. I think we talk about it once a week, where, you have your video games, you have your movies, I've just listened to your podcast, about Dungeons and Dragons. And I thought that was great. I've always wanted to learn about, D&D and how the game is played. But those are times for you to kind of unwind and step aside and really, you know, recenter yourself. And for me, I love going to the gym. Um, I love, working out. I love going for long runs. I love doing yard work. As dad as that sounds, I do not have a pair of white New Balance. I'm not there yet. But I do enjoy yard work. And then, I'm an avid reader. I kind of say that I'm kind of like a frustrated librarian because I'm always buying and collecting books and then I never get around to reading them. But whether it's 15 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day for you to do things that you enjoy, it allows you to balance yourself so you can then in turn be the best father that you can be the best husband that you can be. And I'm not saying go out every night with the boys and come home hammered, but there's nothing wrong with going home from work and taking 15 minutes to yourself, just and taking that time to unwind a little bit. So then when it's time to be with the wife and the kids, they can have your undivided attention.
And I think that's I'm having an issue with that myself. And like even for my own show, I have a segment where we talk about what do you do for yourself. And myself lately, what I do for myself is this podcast and
Hmm.
preparing and editing and recording the podcast. This is what I do for myself, but this is a few hours out of the month.
Right.
So on a day-to-day basis, I put almost everything into the family or the house or the
Hmm.
yard work, the yard, not the yard work, but like taking care of the kids,
Yeah.
making sure my wife's taken care of,
Right.
the house is taken care of, just doing chores and things like that. And I have lost so much of taking care of me
Hmm.
that I almost kind of like what Paul said a couple episodes ago. like how I put so much stock into being a father, being a husband,
Right.
being a homeowner, that I've forgotten who I am. And
Hmm.
that's what, like, even my wife and I today, we had a talk where it's so much like I think so much depends on me and everything is on my shoulders, and that it's overwhelming to me. I don't know how to just relax and unwind and stop for a few minutes. So, and
Hmm.
that's really taking its toll both on me and our relationship as well. So that's something that I need to actively work on.
Yeah.
And it's funny that I harp on take time for yourself, do something for yourself, and I can't do it myself. So
Yeah.
it's because unfortunately I've lost a lot of drive to play video games. It just doesn't do it for me anymore. I can't jump into a
Yeah.
game that I haven't played in 8 months and I don't remember how the controls work, and I get frustrated.
I
And
think every dad goes through that.
that honestly, it's as silly as it sounds. I jump into any Mario game and it's jump and jump farther, and it's just very easy, and
And I
that's
think it's
I
because
can
we
just
grew
jump
up
in.
playing that, I'm sorry to mean to cut you off, but we grew up playing that. So the controls are just embedded in our mind, holding down Y, you get to run faster, B's jump
Exactly.
and you're good to go. Where, I'm trying to get through the fourth level of Doom Eternal and it could be 3, 4 weeks before I touch a controller. And I'm like, can I go through the tutorial just for like 15 minutes? Cause I don't know how to launch a grenade. So, but like today was a perfect example. I'm listening to a podcast on the way home, and I might take a longer route home, and I might drive a little bit slower home and catch that red light just so I can finish, the segment that I'm on. Um, I majored in history in college, and I'm always reading about history and listening to podcasts about history. And I listened to one called Martyr Made, and the one I was listening to today was about the Soviet Union and their takeover of Romania, Latvia, Estonia, and the torture that they imposed on the civilian populace. And it was very, reminiscent of reading 1984, and he referenced Clockwork Orange a lot.
Hmm.
So, what I'll do is, I'll take a longer route home. I'll catch the red lights. I'm gonna sit in the driveway for 5, 10 minutes extra, just get through a segment, just so my mind is elsewhere, and I'm downloading what happened at work. I'm clearing my mind, doing something I enjoy. So when I walk in the door, bam, I'm ready to go. And there are days where my wife's had a bad day at work, and she'll let me know, and I got to go in, and I can't do that, and I've got to step up to the role and put on the Superman cape or pick up the Captain America shield
Right.
and do it. And there are days where I tell her, hey, I had a really, really bad day. And I think you have to have that balance with your spouse. And kudos to those who are single parents. I don't know if you have any single fathers or even mothers who listen to the show, but single parents, kudos to you for juggling it, because I mean, being a parent is a full time job with or without a spouse. It's even harder for you. You're doing it solo. So, but that alone time is to me is crucial.
Yeah, it's funny, like I'm such in a fast-paced state of mind
Hmm.
where as soon as I leave work, I'm actually rushing home so I can get home to help my wife, because I know that she's had the kids all day,
Right.
and I want to be there to help her. But I don't take a minute to think, am I in the right state of mind to be the best help
Hmm.
that I can be? So
Yeah.
that, I
Yeah.
mean, and I don't know if you saw it, but on my whiteboard at work, I wrote something there to kind of help myself, and it just says be better. And it's
Yeah.
not just be a better father, be a better husband, but just be a better me so that I can be better for them.
Hmm.
That's what that's there for. So
Yeah.
um but it is very important to take that time for yourself
Oh,
so that you
absolutely.
can kind of center
Hmm.
and like you said, be the best version of you, so
Yeah.
you can be yourself
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. I have a quote on one of my boards in the office. I don't know the exact thing, but it's pretty much, have a purpose in life. When you're at work, what's your purpose at work? When you're home, what's your purpose at home? And I try and tell I wrote a note to my daughter on the first day because she started fifth grade. And I said, what's your drive? What's your purpose this year? It's to be the best version of you, to get to this year, to finish your elementary school year, being the best student that you could be, taking everything that you've learned over the past 5 years in elementary school. So when I'm at work, I'm trying to be the best version I can be and getting as much done. And when I'm at home, I'm trying to be the best father I can be. I'm trying to be the best husband I can be. And that's just, what we sign up for as, getting married and then bringing children to this world.
Yeah,
So a
exactly.
man provides, like the quote I sent you last night.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much covers it. Remember to take time for yourself so that you can be the best version of you, so that you can be the best dad and husband that you can be. So let's move on. I know that you have something in mind that you want to talk about, but there's something else that I kind of want to talk about with you that I haven't mentioned to you yet. So I'm going to get to yours first. Christian, what is it for non-parenting topic tonight that you would like to talk about?
Marvel's newest release, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Spoiler warning for everybody that hasn't seen it. Christian and I were lucky enough to see it. But if you haven't seen it, turn back now because we're going to be talking about the end and all that stuff. So fair warning. How fantastic was the movie?
First of all, when he was in his bedroom, did you see the three posters that were on his wall
um, I
towards the
remember
beginning?
noticing. Yeah, I remembered.
Okay, The Warriors, one of the greatest movies ever made.
Mm,
Outcast album, I think it was
it was
Stankonia.
Stankonia. Yeah,
Yep,
that one I saw.
and then a poster for Kung Fu Hustle. So
Oh,
I
okay. No, I didn't notice that
I
one.
don't know the significance of all three, but kudos to the directors for putting those in there because those are two fantastic movies, and that's a great album. So,
I don't think I've ever seen The Warriors.
oh,
There's like a
you're missing out.
no, I don't. I've never seen The Warriors.
Yeah, it's a gang in New York City. All the gangs get together. One gets blamed for something, and then they've got to escape New York City and get to their strong point. And the gang, every gang in New York is going after them. So
Oh wow.
cheesy, and I don't even know what year it was made, 70s, 80s gang movie, but I highly, highly recommend it. So,
Noted. I wonder if that has anything. I mean, Kung Fu Hustle, obviously.
right.
Stankonia is a little bit more of his less than traditional Chinese upbringing. It's
Hmm.
more of a modern day thing. I wonder if Warriors
Yeah.
has some kind of significance as far as his character goes.
Yeah, I wondered, I was wondering
So
that as well.
the excellent fighting compared with the over the top Marvel cinematics,
Yeah.
I thought just were so good.
Hmm.
What was his name? Razor Fist at the beginning in
Yeah.
the bus scene. I
Yeah.
really thought that he was going to just be there for that one scene and then
I
eat it.
agree.
Then like he was gone. But I was
I
surprised that he lasted throughout the entire movie. And I wonder if he's going to be coming back for something or other.
Did you stay for the end credits? Because I left after the mid credits.
Yes, no, I made a point to stay for both.
Was he there? Because I read that his sister's starting up the organization again
Yep. So the mid credit scene
with
was
Wong. I saw that Wong was there, and they were talking about the rings and where they come from, and Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner were there.
right. Essentially, it was Shang-Chi and Aquafina, Katie, I guess, talking in the Sanctum Sanctorum with Wong, and on those glass projectors, I guess Bruce Banner was there, his arm in a sling, if you noticed,
Correct.
and yeah, exactly,
Snapped.
and Captain Marvel, and they were talking about the origin of the Ten Rings, and they didn't. It was very old, but they didn't know exactly where they came from. But there was something about the rings and their genetic makeup, or whatever the case is, that there's something there. So they're like leading to something. They're just teasing a little bit for the future.
Two theories. One, something to do with the Eternals, possibly, or
Okay.
the other, something to do with the multiverse. And at the end of Loki was Kang the Conqueror,
Yep.
and somehow that's from one of the other multiverses, and it ended up on in our universe.
Okay. I have a feeling it's not multiversal.
Okay.
It may be, but I'm leaning more towards Eternals and Celestials and something like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
But I have a feeling that they're leading towards something significantly bigger.
Okay.
I just don't know what it is yet. There,
Yeah.
it's certainly pointing towards something. I just don't know. I can't put my finger on it yet. It's too early to tell. And I think we talked about this before. This is phase five, no, phase four, essentially
Hmm.
of the MCU, and the last three phases were a decade long. So we're so
Correct.
very early on.
Oh yeah.
Like with WandaVision was, well, I mean, I guess Spider-Man No Way Home was, no, not No Way Home, Far From
Far from
Home
home.
was the very first part in phase four.
Right.
But not really, because it was still very much so dealing with phase three and the events of Endgame. So I feel like Far From Home was kind of the end credit scene of phase 3.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. That's what I was going to say. That was the end of that chapter, and WandaVision, Loki, Captain America, or I'm sorry, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's the beginning of the next chapter of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Exactly. I feel like this is all leading towards some other thing, but it's going
Yeah,
to be leading towards several different things because the next 10 years, essentially, this is what it's going to take
I
and lead
mean,
up to. We have no idea. I mean, I know
no,
we're getting
none.
X-Men. I know we're getting,
Fantastic Four.
yeah, Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
I know that they were trying to set up like Doom, but Doom could be in like 3 years, whereas like the whole big bad is going to be 10 years from now, which is
yeah.
wild.
I mean, look at when the first Iron Man movie came out. What year was that?
2009, 2009 or 2007.
I mean, look at where we are right now in the Marvel Cinematic
Oh,
Universe. It's just, I mean, and nobody would have imagined that it would be here today when they saw, Iron Man for the first time,
oh yeah,
hanging to the underside of an F-22.
yeah. I honestly don't think that they had all of this like
No,
with Thanos and everything
no,
like that in mind. But the way that they did it, and it's something that I've said before, but I have faith in Feige because they
yeah,
just don't prove me wrong. And
right.
I know a lot of people are critical and they take their issues with certain things in certain movies, which is fine. I welcome that. Like be critical so that they can be better, so that you voice your opinion to where maybe they say, okay, well, okay, maybe Thor: The Dark World was terrible and we shouldn't go that route again. So
That's why you have Thor Ragnarok to correct the errors of the past.
look what the next one did. It
Right.
was honestly the best Thor movie. It was one of my favorite of the main six Avengers.
Yeah, easily.
So, but anyway, back to Shang-Chi.
My only complaint about Shang-Chi, and like I said, I'm not a critic. I mean, everybody has opinions. They're like assholes and elbows. I'm sorry, is this
Right.
podcast, we're allowed to curse on this podcast? I don't know. The final scene when he's flying on a dragon with his sister and they're fighting the evil soul-sucking dragon. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, there is a lot going on right now. Like, it's like a lot going on. My son's 7, and he looked at me and goes, Daddy, there's a lot going on the screen. And he like literally, like I told you, like that link that he and I have, he took the words out of my mouth. So for a 7-year-old kid who, loves King Kong versus Godzilla, who loves Pacific Rim, who loves Transformers, for him to say that, I was like, yeah, there's kind of a lot going on right now on the
Yeah.
screen. That's my only complaint. The bus chase scene, phenomenal.
So good.
The scene in the skyscraper, I mean, absolutely incredible. The cinematography, and we've talked about it like with Loki, like Marvel's ability to build a world and a universe and immerse you in it, nobody can touch it. And I
Totally.
mean, it's just the movie was a really, really fun ride. I mean, that's the way I could say it.
I do have a couple critiques of the movie. Not that I didn't like it, but things that I didn't like or I thought could have been done differently.
Mhm.
Number one, like you said, towards the end, I don't really know what did the rings do to be able to kill the big bad. I don't know.
I thought it was the arrow through the neck.
Yeah, yeah. When Katie Aquafina, like, okay, she gets the sidekick hero moment where she targets the weak point. Cool. It's very unbelievable that she had just learned to shoot a bow and arrow the day before,
Correct.
and then and
Right.
like that. It's like, all right, whatever. I'll suspend disbelief for that. So, but I didn't know how exactly the rings took care of the whole problem and how it killed it. I don't know. That was one thing. It didn't make sense to me. The other thing, which was bigger for me, I know it was kind of fan service to bring him back, but Trevor Slattery was so annoying to me. I don't think that it was nice to see him like locked in the cells and he was like a plot device to have him continue the story to
Right.
tell him where Tao Lo was, but I think that they could have done it a little differently because I
Yeah,
don't think that he needed to follow them throughout.
I agree.
Nothing that he said after that was funny. It didn't hit.
He didn't contribute to the film at all.
Like no, it was just like for him to show them this creature that he found one day or something,
A Pokemon.
and yeah, exactly. I thought it would better have been better for them to make an example out of him, whatever. If they could have worked that into the story and then just executed him,
Yeah.
I thought that would have been another option to go. Maybe not a better option, but it would have been preferable to me because he just got annoying
Yeah,
towards
I agree.
everything after that dungeon scene or whatever.
Yeah, to me, you already have the comic relief with the sidekick, so you don't need
Exactly.
another comic relief who just for fan service. So
Yeah.
that's another one.
Aquafina, I'm not a big fan of, but I'm glad she wasn't as annoying as I was worried she was going to be.
Right.
And she was funny. She did have some pretty solid lines, but she wasn't as bad as I thought she was going to be, which was nice. And it's not that I don't like her, but I do find her not my favorite kind of sidekick, comic relief. But overall, like the fighting was fantastic. Oh,
Yeah.
the other thing that I had a bit of a critique on was when they go to his sister's like fighting area and they see, the different fighting pits. Did you notice that there was a widow in one of the small time cells?
I did not catch that.
There was and
Okay.
her name was Helen
Hmm.
actually, and she was in Black Widow. I
Okay.
just don't remember exactly where, but she's in there somewhere.
I haven't seen Black Widow yet, so
Okay, well, I mean, you know the general premise of
right.
whatever, um, but there is a widow down there, and it's a blink and you'll miss it. It's not a huge deal, but my where I find issue is where, and I thought it was cool, but Wong is fighting
The Abomination.
Abomination, and the match is over and they're in the locker rooms and they're buddies. i
Yeah.
i didn't understand. It's
The
not that I have a
relationship.
critique, I just don't understand
Right.
what they were going for. And Abomination is quote a bad guy, but
Right.
what's changed and what is that relationship like, and where did they go to hang out after that scene when they opened a portal? I just didn't, it didn't connect for me. It didn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree on that one. Although I haven't seen Incredible Hulk in years, so I won't even know like what happened to the character at the end.
It's been years for me too, but from what I remember, um Mark Ruffalo looked a lot different.
Yeah, he
He
didn't
looked a
age
lot
well.
like Edward Norton.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
No, but uh, Abomination's character, he just got beaten up, and
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever changed back to his human form or if he was just Abomination from then on. I honestly don't remember.
Right.
What I really did like about the film was it was, with the exception of them mentioning like a snap or something like that, with the exception of that little tidbit, you would not know that it's a Marvel film.
Correct.
It stood on its own. It didn't have anybody else really,
Yeah.
with the exception of like the little cameos from like Trevor and Wong and whatever. But for the very vast majority of the film, it stood on its own and it was
Yeah.
still good. And
And
I'm
that's what I
glad that
like
it's
too.
doing so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Another critique is the 30 minutes of trailers before the movie even began. Forgot
yeah,
how annoying that is.
I was very surprised at how many trailers, and I'm like, was it always this many trailers? But at the same
Um,
time, it was kind of nice to be in the theater. You could see
right. I
trailers
agree.
for movies. I know
Yeah.
you've seen them on YouTube or Facebook or
It's not the
whatever.
same. It is not the same at all.
No, definitely not. There
Yeah.
and my wife and I went to go see it, and there was one trailer. I don't even remember what it was for, but I think it was kind of showcasing the surround sound and the high def sound.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was it always this loud, or am I just old?
Yeah. The final trailer was for the Eternals. And like you just said, you could watch a trailer on YouTube and yeah, it looks great, but when you actually see a trailer for the Eternals in a movie theater, it just looks absolutely incredible.
When you see the giant,
Yeah.
like overwhelming Hulk of the Celestial on the big screen, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, it makes it significantly better.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that movie. Like, can we bring Galactus already? Like, when is he just going to show up and
Yeah.
dominate everything?
Were you surprised that they didn't have the No Way Home trailer?
I was, but that's Sony, right? That's separate from.
Yeah, no, but Sony and Marvel play. They'll
Yeah, I know with Spider-Man because
well,
the
like
rights.
Venom was in ours.
Yeah, the new one, Carnage, which looks all
Yep.
right. I don't know how I feel about that one.
It's Venom to me is such a it's a dessert that I won't order off a menu, but if it's in the fridge, I'll have it,
Fair
kind of
enough.
thing. Like
Yeah.
it's not exactly what I'm going to go for, but it's something
Hmm.
that I'll enjoy because it's there.
Yeah.
Um, I love Tom Hardy. I know you love Tom Hardy as well.
Agreed.
Um, I think he is not a great Eddie Brock, but
His accent's a little off.
I'll tell you what though, I will take him over Topher Grace any day of the week though.
Oh, 1,000% agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Can I just erase Spider-Man 3 altogether?
I went back and I started watching all of the Spider-Man's movies. I went through the original trilogy. I watched both Andrew Garfield's, and now I just finished Homecoming, so I still have Far From Home left to do. And then I'm going to do Into the Spider-Verse, which is fantastic, by the way. I absolutely despise Topher Grace as Eddie Brock because that's not what the character was supposed to be. He wasn't
Nope.
supposed to be a whiny bitch. So Tom Hardy has that over him as far as being a little bit more of a gruff, manly kind of ish like that.
Being
But I
Venom.
still don't think it was cast properly. I love the
Correct.
Venom in the Venom movies. I love the symbiote, and I love
Hmm.
how they actually refer to themselves as we instead of I.
Yeah.
They screwed that up too.
Wasn't there a dance scene in Spider-Man 3 at some point?
Yeah, I kid you not. I went back to rewatch it and I skipped over it because it was so bad. It was like I got through the the finger pointing and him going through getting a new outfit. But when it got to the jazz club that he brought Gwen Stacy to, where Mary Jane was waitressing at or singing at the time, it was so bad I couldn't even watch it. It was just so cringy.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on that.
I do not like Woody Harrelson as Carnage. I thought that was the worst casting that
Yeah,
they
I
could have
agree.
done.
Not a fan of that whatsoever. And we
I
talked
like
even
Woody
about the
Harrelson in True Detective, but
phenomenal.
I'm not gonna believe him as Venom as Carnage.
No, I said even the actor who played Rorschach in the Watchmen movies. I think he looks more like a Carnage. Other than Woody Harrelson just doesn't.
I remember when the first Venom movie came out and we saw the after credit scene where it showed um am I getting the name wrong? Cletus Cassidy.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, where they showed Woody Harrelson as that character. That night, or maybe it was the next day, I went online and I started looking up redheaded actors to say how many people could they have picked that is not him because it's just so bad casting.
One of the Weasley twins from the Harry Potter universe. I mean, there's
Yep.
tons of you know other people that could have been given a shot. Not yeah, just doesn't. Whatever. He'll be CGI for most of the movie, anyways.
Yeah, and that's fine. So long as it's brutal, so long as it's dark,
That's Carnage.
that's
Yeah.
all I ever want. So all right, so let's move on a little bit. I have a new segment that I started the last episode, which I really liked and I want to continue on, which is tell me a story. Christian, God, I hate calling you that. Um, Christian, tell me a story about fatherhood, parenthood, husbandhood. Tell me a story.
I got two stories. One where I succeeded as a parent, and one where I failed miserably as a parent. Both involve my job, and both involve me being on SWAT. Start with the good. One of my favorite movies, the good, the bad, the ugly. You always start with the good. A few years ago on the SWAT team, we were issued night vision goggles. If any of your listeners have ever worn them, it is an amazing piece of technology. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to utilize them, the NVGs we were issued, I could literally look up at the sky in South Florida, and we all know how bright it is and how little of the night sky you can see. And I could see every star in the sky. I could see satellites. I mean, that's how powerful this technology was.
Whoa.
My son was about 3, and he was obsessed with Maui. We even had his third birthday party was themed Moana. We had like a slip and slide. We had tons of stuff set up in the backyard. He loved Maui, and he loves the Kakamoras. Kudos to Disney
Mm-hmm.
for the Kakamoras and kind of stealing the soundtrack to Fury Road.
Side note, I did not piece that together with
You're
the
welcome.
cockamoras, which are the coconuts from Moana,
You're
but that
welcome
was kind
for
of a
yeah.
you're welcome.
I introduced you to that. Well, true,
Yeah.
but I told you about that. I think we were texting at the time, and I'm like, "Hey, did you catch where that song's from?" And you were like, "No."
I remember that. I did not
Yeah,
catch it at all. And then I
yeah,
went back and watched it because at the time my daughter was watching it like crazy.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, this is kind of like Fury Road. I was
yeah.
so happy.
Fury Road, one of the best movies of all time. Anyway, so he lost a little Kakamora at the neighborhood playground, and we realized it at like 9 o'clock at night. And I told my wife, I'm like, oh, I'll go find it. And she's like, no, you won't. There's no way. And I'm like, no, watch me. And I put on my night vision goggles, and the playground's on like a 5 acre lot, and it's pretty dark over there. We have street lights, but it's not illuminated. Um, Side note, I always thought it'd be really creepy to dress up like a clown and swing on a swing set at like 1 o'clock in the morning playing carnival music. But there's also like, cops and firefighters in my neighborhood, so I might get shot if I ever decide to do that. So I walked over to the park, or yeah, I walked over to the park wearing the night vision goggles. And sure enough, under the playground, I noticed a little shape, and I walked over and I found the Kakamora. And I walked back home and I showed my son, and I was dad of the year. And my wife couldn't believe it. Everybody's like, no way. And I was like, yeah, I found it.
He was 3. Was he like devastated when he realized that he didn't have it?
Oh yeah, this was like his Kakamora. Like this was the one, kids always attach like one specific toy. And
Yeah.
this
Okay.
was like the one that he wanted. We bought a few more after that just in case.
Good call.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a time where, just I succeeded as a dad. And I
Nice.
used the tools of my job at the time, and I was able to do that. The time I failed, I'm not so proud of this. Like I said earlier, you put your job before your family. My daughter's fifth birthday, and this is going a year before. We're going to go see Moana in theater, is when it had just been released. And being on the SWAT team, for holidays, family events, stuff like that, if you were going to be out of town or busy, you could always say you were unavailable. So I forgot to say that morning that I was unavailable for the day because it was my daughter's birthday. Made her breakfast, and I got a phone call from our station that we had an in progress violent domestic that had turned into a barricaded situation.
Mhm.
I got the phone call, and I was like, oh, this is bad. And I look at my wife, and I was like, hey, I got to go. She's like, no, you don't. I said, no, I got to go. Duty calls. And she looked at me and she said, it's your daughter's birthday. And I said, okay, well, I'll wrap this up in a few hours and I'll be home, and we'll catch the movie later in the afternoon. And, I left and I got to the scene. I opened my trunk, and I was opening my trunk. All the Christmas gifts were in the back of my police car because we wrapped them like a week prior because you don't want to wrap it the night before Christmas.
Sure.
So I had wrapped all the Christmas gifts, put in the back of my car, open my car, and all the gifts fall out. And I'm thinking to
Oh,
myself, and I'm like, man, what if something were to happen to me, on this call? Not only did I put my job before my family, but now, it was at that moment that I realized I had made such a huge mistake.
hmm.
So we ended up, clearing the call. We went to go to the debrief. I don't know if any of your listeners are police officers, if they've ever been on a debrief, but a debrief can be anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. Usually it's on the longer end because everybody has an opinion and they want to get their 2 cents in. And I looked at my team leader, I pulled him aside and I said, hey, it's my daughter's birthday. You mind if I skip the debrief and get out of here? He's like, dude, what are you even doing here? Go home. So I was driving home. I called my wife and I said, hey, I'll make the movie. And we got home, and we didn't talk about it that night. We didn't talk about it the next day. And it was like a week later. And she was like, don't ever make that mistake again.
Mm.
And she was like, your career is not more important than your family. And it was kind of like, we need you here. So it's like you kind of alluded to earlier, where you feel like, so much rests on you, and as a father, I think, a lot of, we do put a lot of that pressure on ourselves, where we do have a spouse that we can always, it's nothing wrong in admitting, hey, I'm, having a bad day, where you can share the responsibility. And I've even talked about it with my wife, and I got this from Jordan Peterson. You have your flaws, your wife has your flaws, but together you make one solid person. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
if you're having a bad day, your wife can step up and step up to 70% while you're down at 30. And if she's having a bad day, you might step up to 80%. She's floating down at 20%.
Hmm.
But you need to have that balance. And that day, I definitely let my job come before my family, and I vowed, I would never, make that mistake again because I don't want to sacrifice what I have and lose, the support and not be there for my kids. So it's good to have that balance and not make those mistakes.
I know it's probably been a while, but did you think about like what your dad said like how you said you had it out with your dad that one day when he said that
Oh
he put
yeah.
his career before his family? Did you think
Oh,
about that?
100%. Driving home after I called her and said, hey, we can make the movie. And then that's one of the first thoughts that popped into my mind.
Hmm.
And just for my mental health and my parents ended up divorcing when I was in my 20s in college, and just both were at fault. Um, but I think about that often of putting your career before your family, and what a bad decision that can be. And we as men, we as fathers, we put all this pressure on us that sometimes I think we create in our mind. We create this pressure in our mind that really isn't there. And you look at your kids, and your kids may not remember, what's going on at that moment. So
I think about like my dad, because my dad was in law enforcement for longer than I was alive. So I always remember him being at work.
yeah,
Dad is at
yeah,
work. But damn it if he didn't make every game that
hmm
I like baseball game that I had. I was too young to remember it, but I know that he coached both my brothers, my
right,
sister in
yeah,
softball. My dad loves baseball and for my sister's softball. So he was always there on the weekends to coach, but through the week, dad wasn't home. Like
yeah,
for me, dad wasn't home. He was very committed to the profession. Unfortunately, like the home life had to be sacrificed a little bit for that. But he
right,
was home at nighttime. Sometimes it was later. But I always missed that quality time with my dad during the week. Like sure, it was there on the weekends for games, like for a baseball game or taking me fishing one day. But I'm the youngest of four, so he was spread thin. Not only did he have to be high up in the police department that he was working at, whatever time it was, because there was a few of them, and then he also had to be a husband and a father to four different kids. So I remember every single thing that I ever did with him because it was very meaningful because I
right,
didn't get a lot of time with him.
yeah,
So everything, even from being very young, I remember. So at this point in both of our kids' lives, mine are younger than yours. It's it makes it more real for me to make them good memories instead of being checked out or being too tired to play Barbies or whatever. So I think that's really important too, is to make sure that you put the time in to be there with them.
yeah, 100% agree with you. Like, I'm the oldest of four. I do have fond memories of my parents, and good memories of my dad, but just that comment, sticks out. And looking back, and him not coming home till 8 o'clock at night. And it's like, all right, well, I got to go to bed because I got school in the morning. And,
Yeah,
so, I stopped working details years ago. I don't take overtime assignments unless the kids are in school. So just because to me, being home is just so important.
yeah,
And that foundation, and having those talks at dinner time, and then having Saturday and Sunday breakfast, to me, those are times that you can never make up for. You can have all the
right.
money, you can have all the money in the world. I was making overtime on that call out. The overtime's great. I enjoy the money, but if something were to happen to me, okay, the money is going to be meaningless because now my kids don't have a father.
Yeah, and even more so, like yeah, the money's good for what, buying them a couple extra toys.
Yeah, yeah,
I would sacrifice a few toys for playing another round of Barbies or taking
hmm
her in the pool.
yep,
So
yep,
it's the time is better than the money, no matter what you do.
agreed.
Well, on that note, that's it for today's episode, everybody. Thank you very much, Christian, for being my guest today. As I like to do with all of my guests, do you have any last words for our listeners tonight?
Cheers to all the men out there. Thank you for supporting my friend Mr. Moss. I think he's doing a great job with this podcast. Drinking and talking about being dad, nothing better than that. And that's all. Stay strong.
Cheers to you, my friend. Thank you very much for being on the show. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Daddy.
Good night, baby.